Our story of Wing Chun's journey to America has reached a critical turning point. We've witnessed its dramatic landing on American shores, first through the cultural earthquake of Bruce Lee, then through the dedicated work of immigrant masters establishing beachheads in coastal cities. We saw how these urban hubs, especially the seminal schools of Moy Yat in New York City and Sifu Donald Lee in Philadelphia, became meccas for early practitioners. But history teaches us that for any tradition to truly survive and thrive in a new land, it must do more than establish outposts. It must undergo a process of localization. It must move from the central hearth and carry its embers into the surrounding communities where new fires can be kindled. This is the story of that vital, often overlooked chapter, the specific migration of Wing Chun from the dense, bustling urban cores of Manhattan and Center City, Philadelphia, across municipal boundaries and highway exits into the very particular soil of Delaware County, Pennsylvania. This is a story not of famous masters, but of dedicated disciples, not of silver screens, but of strip malls and YMCA activity rooms. It's the story of how a global art became a local practice. To fully appreciate Wing Chun's arrival in Delaware County, we must first map the two gravitational centers that pulled upon its early practitioners. The primary force was to the north in New York City. Following the death of Ip Man in 1972 and the global frenzy around Bruce Lee in 1973, the arrival of Moy Yat that same year was providential. Moy Yat was no ordinary immigrant. As a closed-door disciple who had trained intimately with Ip Man from 1957 until the Grandmaster's passing, he carried an impeccable lineage. His school at 11 Pell Street in Chinatown, opening its doors in 1973, was for several years the only direct source for Ip Man's Wing Chun on the entire eastern seaboard. For a martial artist in the Delaware Valley, this represented a sacred destination, a 4-hour round-trip pilgrimage. The secondary, yet increasingly powerful force was within the region itself, in Philadelphia. By the early 1980s, Sifu Donald Lee, a senior student of the formidable Grandmaster William Cheung, had established a thriving school in the city. This provided a slightly closer, though still significant, alternative for Delaware County residents. William Cheung's lineage emphasized a robust, combat-ready interpretation of the art, and Sifu Donald Lee's school became a magnet for serious practitioners. These two poles, New York's historical authenticity and Philadelphia's practical vigor, created a dynamic training corridor along the I-95 Northeast Corridor. The first generation of Delaware County Wing Chun practitioners were, without exception, commuters. They were people like a chemistry teacher from Marple, a mechanic from Upper Darby, or a graduate student living in Media. Their training was built into the rhythm of their weeks: work until 5, grab a quick dinner, drive an hour or more into the city, train intensely for 2 or 3 hours, then drive home, often arriving near midnight, muscles aching and mind buzzing with new concepts. These commuters were the unsung transmission cables. In the 1970s and early 80s, they returned from New York or Philadelphia not to teach, but to obsessively practice. Their training halls were private, domestic spaces. A finished basement in a Broomall split level became a solo training floor. A garage in Havertown, with a heavy bag hung from the ceiling and markings for footwork taped to the concrete, became a personal kwoon. This era was defined by isolation and ingenuity. Since access to a proper wooden dummy was impossible, they followed plans from martial arts magazines, constructing their own mukyanjong from dimensional lumber and plumbing pipes. They wore out VHS tapes from instructors like Augustine Fong, pausing and rewinding to decode a single movement from the kungfu form. They were laying a foundation not for a school, but for their own understanding. Yet in doing so, they were also conditioning the local environment, creating the first invisible nodes of Wing Chun knowledge in the county. The transformation from private practitioner to community teacher is a profound threshold in the Chinese martial arts tradition. It requires more than just technical competence. It demands a depth of understanding, maturity of character, and crucially, the explicit blessing and permission of one's Sifu. This moment began to arrive for the most dedicated Delaware County commuters in the mid-1980s. After 7, 8, or 10 years of unwavering training, a senior student might be approached by their master. The conversation was momentous. "You are ready to start a study group. Bring the art to your area." This wasn't about opening a commercial business, it was about fulfilling a duty to the lineage by spreading its knowledge. And so, the first public expressions of Wing Chun in Delaware County were born in the humblest of venues. They were not called schools, but classes or study groups. One of the earliest might have been in the Springfield Athletic Center on Baltimore Pike, renting a wrestling room on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Another could have taken root in the community room of the Media Municipal Building, its linoleum floor and fluorescent lights a world away from the incense and calligraphy of a traditional Chinese school. A third might have started in a borrowed space at the Eastern Delaware County YMCA in Lounsdown. The instructor, still working their day job, would arrive early, move folding chairs, and welcome a small group of 4 or 5 curious students. The atmosphere was one of focused discovery. The curriculum was pure and fundamental, hours spent on the Yiji Kim Yangma stance, learning to root power into the ground. The first section of Siu Nim Tao was practiced relentlessly, not as a rote exercise, but as a meditation on structure and alignment. These classes were the seed crystals around which a local community would slowly form. We are following the intimate, human-scale story of cultural transmission. If you value understanding how great traditions put down local roots, please subscribe to Epic Mind History. Your support allows us to dedicate the time to tell these detailed, community-focused stories. Now, let's continue with Delaware County's Wing Chun evolution. As the 1980s turned into the 1990s, these weekly study groups demonstrated resilience. Student rosters grew from 5 to 10, then 15. The consistency of meeting in the same rented room, week after week, year after year, bred a sense of identity. The group was no longer just Wing Chun class, it was our Wing Chun class. This growing stability, coupled with the physical limitations of shared spaces, spurred the next evolutionary leap, the quest for a permanent home. An instructor, now with a core group of senior students, would begin searching for a dedicated location. This was a major financial and emotional commitment, signing a lease, paying for build-out, investing in proper equipment. The opening of the first dedicated Wing Chun Academy in Delaware County was a landmark event. Imagine a modest 1,200-square-foot unit in a strip mall on Westchester Pike in Upper Darby, or a renovated space in an industrial condo complex in Aston. The sign above the door was simple and clear. Inside, the transformation was profound. For the first time, a redwood or oak mukyanjong was securely mounted to a proper frame on the floor, its arms and legs smoothed by years of use in the city, now transplanted to the suburbs. Wall-mounted mirrors were installed for form correction. A rack held focus mitts and kicking shields. This space was a declaration. Wing Chun lived here now. It had a zip code. The instructors who operated these first dedicated academies were pivotal figures. They were not mythical sages from afar, but accessible authorities. They might be a father of 2 from Newtown Square who worked in IT, or a former Marine from Drexel Hill. Their credibility was built on their deep, verifiable lineage and their palpable skill, not on manufactured mystique. For the residents of Delaware County, this was revolutionary. They could now learn an authentic, centuries-old Chinese martial art from a neighbor who spoke their cultural language, understood the rhythms of suburban life, and could demystify complex principles without diluting them. The training remained rigorous. Students graduated from Siu Nim Tao to Chum Kyu. The heart of the art, Chi Sao, or sticky hands practice, became a weekly ritual, teaching fighters to read intention through touch in a controlled yet alive dialogue of energy. The dawn of the 21st century and the rise of the internet dissolved the remaining isolation of the Delaware County schools. Instructors could now connect with peers across the country via email and early forums to discuss subtle technical points. They could order specialized uniforms, training weapons, and high-quality dummies from dedicated websites. Then, in 2008, history offered a powerful echo. The release of Ip Man starring Donnie Yen ignited a cultural spark almost identical to the Bruce Lee phenomenon 35 years prior. A new wave of potential students, many of them teenagers and young adults, flooded local academies. Their reference point was not grainy 1970s footage, but crisp, cinematic heroism. This influx brought fresh energy and validated the decades of work by local pioneers. Today, the Wing Chun landscape of Delaware County is a mature and vibrant ecosystem. The academies that sprouted in the 1990s are now institutions with 20 or 30-year histories, some run by the original founders, others by their senior students. They exist alongside newer schools representing different lineages, creating a healthy diversity. These schools are active community participants. They host seminars where grandmasters from New York or even Hong Kong visit, allowing local students to touch the highest levels of the art. They offer demonstrations at the Media Food Festival or Springfield Day, translating ancient movements for a modern suburban audience. Most importantly, they continue the daily work of transmission. In a studio on State Road or in a training hall near the Granite Run Mall, an instructor patiently adjusts a student's elbow, explaining the geometry of the center line. In that moment, a continuum that spans continents and centuries is made immediate. The art conceived for survival in Imperial China, refined in the Pearl River Delta, globalized from Hong Kong, carried to American cities by immigrant masters, and faithfully transported to the suburbs by devoted commuters, is alive, growing, and being passed on, right here in Delaware County.